Hey, it's guitarist Eric Skye again. Another episode of the 30-Day Guitar Challenge. Today I want to talk a little bit about learning to read music. But before you go away, if you're a tab guy or you mostly play by ear, I'm not going to get too heavy on you. I know this is maybe stretching the boundaries a little bit of things that you can just sort of add to what you already do. It's kind of like a whole new skill, right? But I really feel like, if your goal is if you set your goal at just being like kind of a lower intermediate reader, you can really get a lot out of it. And I'm no great reader. I have friends who are amazing sight readers. I'm pretty good. It kind of comes and goes a little bit. I'm probably like an upper intermediate reader. But it's contributed so much to my life over the years. I know in another episode I mentioned for example, maybe like getting something like the Charlie Parker Omnibook and then seeing what group of eighth notes what four notes he's playing under a specific chord. If you can name those notes, if you know that those notes are, whether or not you can read them perfectly like in time, that's separate. But if you can at least just name them and a little bit of theory, then you can kind of get his concept and use that into what you're doing. Also, being able to read music, of course, just allows you to go to a library and just the whole wealth of recorded music throughout all time. It's also a more complete picture. For example, tablature, which I love. I mean, I do use tablature a lot. I like to arrange with it because it's just so visual. And certainly in the beginning with teaching, it's great. But there's no rhythmic information or very little rhythmic information. So it's just telling you a little bit of the story. It's fantastic if you're, maybe wanting to learn a Zeppelin riff and you can already hear that riff in your head. It's just showing you where to put your fingers. But if you had never heard that before in your life, it might be really hard to get the phrasing and whatnot. So learning to read music, I just think can be really valuable. I just thought I'd share quickly just a couple, tips or recommendations. One book that I've worked with students with and went through myself many years ago is Christopher Parkening, the great classical guitar player. His book, I think Method 1 or whatever it is particularly good. Not saying you have to be a classical guitar player. I'm no classical guitar player. And just, take the book seriously, but, it doesn't mean you have to sit a certain way or get a classical guitar or buy a tie. It's just a good method for getting up and running. And what I really like about beginning classical guitar books, as opposed to maybe more of the folk books, is as opposed to, learning to read Michael Row Your Boat Ashore or Mary Had a Little Lamb. The most beginning little pieces in that book, they're really good, and by the time you get to, page 50 or something, you're playing stuff that you could play at a wedding gig, So it's really good music. And that's what I like about that book in particular. So that's a good one to start off with. And then just for strengthening your ability to read, the William Levitt books from the Berklee School of Music are particularly good. I think there's one it's just called Reading Studies for Guitar. And it's not very musical, but it's sort of the point. It's sort of it's almost like flashcards. You're just supposed to just keep on trucking, mistakes and all, just keep, because every time if you read something like 3 or 4 times and you're sort of reading, but you're sort of recalling. But if you just keep going forward, then it's, you're just hitting virgin snow each time, So that's sort of the point of that book. And it's just a lot of notes in there and a lot of keys and just kind of go as far as you can. Like I would see how far I could go before I hit the wall, and then I'd start all the way at the beginning again. So you might get 40 pages into it and go, that's it, I can't do it. Because it does get harder and harder. But that's a really neat book that I've used, and I'll drag it out every couple of years and go through that. He has another one that I think is called Melodic Rhythm Reading or Melodic Rhythms for Guitar, and it's basically the same idea, but if you're more interested in jazz, I think it's more indicative of the kind of rhythmic things, the syncopated rhythms that you would read like in the real book or whatnot, and they are actual tunes and stuff, and that's a really good book as well. So again, I think that learning to read music, I'm no sight reader. I'm no great reader. Sometimes I can go months without actually reading, embarrassingly. But I really, really love it. And it's been just a great resource in my life. So that's something to think about for today. Over and out.